Huh? Well, John Wesley Shipp, thank you for making time to talk to me again and talking to DC Comics News. We chatted, I think it was about a year ago now. So time's gone really fast. And yeah, thank you for making the time. It's greatly appreciated.
Always.
So I guess we'll kick off with, it's been about 12 months since we had a chat. We're going to get into the crossover and Flash and everything Flash. So, but can you bring us up to speed with just what's been going on with you for the last with the last 12 months and what's been happening in that time?
Well, in the last 12 months, first of all, my little radio Powder Burns, where I play a blind sheriff, got nominated again for another Sovus Award. We won last year the Outstanding Performance and Storytelling Award, Society of Vocal Arts and Sciences at Lincoln Center. So that was a thrill.
Fantastic.
And then I workshopped a play called Hank and Jim Build a Plane about the lifelong friendship of Henry Fonda and Jimmy Stewart despite vast political differences and romantic rivalries. David Gregory, who played my eldest son on One Life to Live, and then he wrote Powder Burns and is also in it, has written this terrific play, and so we're trying to get a full production of that. Of course, I went back to Vancouver to film the 100th episode in the crossover, so that was wiggy. You know, I didn't see that coming exactly, except people kept asking for it. You know, I said in my conventions, you guys got to stop asking if I'm going to be in the original suit, because if you keep asking, they're going to do it. So, yeah,
that's amazing. And I was thinking something similar as well as far as the suit. But I've got a question about that. So definitely want to get onto that 100%. So you've been flat out busy over the last 12 months, which is great. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the Flash. Let's talk about the crossovers in the 100th episode. So I felt like we started with a bang. The Earth 90 scene, and that kind of for me set everything up. We see Barry Allen crawling on the floor. War has obviously taken its toll. Even though it's a dark, gritty scene, you're on the floor, you're struggling. We kind of see that there's a different suit going on there. But I guess take us through that scene and the filming of it and the creation of it, and kind of how you created that persona for that scene.
Sure. First of all, it was originally shot just to be at the end of the 100th episode, to lead into but Tom Cavanaugh directed it, and they dug up the size of a football field in the middle of this. I don't know where it was. I think it was a former boys' home in Vancouver, but they had like this huge field, and they dug it up, and there were trees coming sideways and searchlights and fogs and fire. You saw it. When I walked onto that set, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be something different than I anticipated. And I see all the superheroes dead. And I'm gasping. I'm on my last breath, and I'm crawling up to the monitor, and I come up and I'm asking him, why are you doing this? I don't understand. And then when he opens the book, clearly I get out of there, and they're able to start on my original crest. Well, I saw Greg Berlanti at the International Emmys about a month and a half ago. He received the Founders Award, and I presented an award at that ceremony in New York. And he told me at that time that it looked so great that they had decided to do something they'd never done before, which was use one scene across all 3 shows to tie the audience in. It sort of worked that it wasn't one of the stars of the shows, you know, because it would have been difficult to play that on all 3 shows. Yeah. But it was me and Monica, and who's awesome, by the way. And so they just cut into it at the end of Supergirl for the first time the week before, and then they did it on Arrow, and then they did it again on Flash, and then they started the crossovers by playing it again. So they got a lot of mileage out of that scene because it really did look cinematic. Absolutely. You know, it was huge cranes and all kinds of great shots.
Yeah, absolutely. The scene blew me away, and it created so much intrigue and really draw you in as an audience to find out, wow, what's going on? And John's playing Barry Allen again. How did that feel as far as, you know, going back to your roots and playing Barry? I mean, is it different for you now to play Barry Allen again, or is it just like, I'm going to put the suit on and I know this, I know the character. It's a different time, but it's fine. What was that like?
Well, I had to know up front that it was not 1990. You know, that 27 years had passed, because that would have just been too much pressure. Now, the way Kate Main and Ocean Drive Leather in Vancouver built a replica of that suit with new fabrics and new technology, they did such a great job that I was much more confident walking onto the set the first time, because they got it all done. It went through several phases, several fittings. We cut it down. I had some notes about what I needed, and then we did a press shoot. And none of those photos have been released yet. I don't know what they're holding on to. Oh, well, I put them up on my Twitter page, one against a dark gray background where you can see that just what a beautiful job that they did. But and then we proceeded to drag it through the mud from about sunset to sunrise, you know, and the designer was there going, can't you have him standing up? And no, clearly not, because if all the other superheroes are in various states of unconscious, Flash has clearly got to be on his last leg and just barely escape.
Yeah.
So I was real pleased with the way that went, and that the CW was as high on the scene as they were, that they decided to play it 4 times in prime time, leading up to the crossover.
I think, yeah, like you said before, I think it's great that they played that scene across all the episodes. And I remember when we were talking when I was talking to JC about setting up this conversation with you, and he shared one of the photos with me in high definition of you in that iconic suit. The suit looks stunning, and you look amazing in the suit. It looks fantastic. So congratulations on building that. And I think there's the character, there's the persona, but then at the end of the day, you're playing a superhero. So how you look and how you present yourself on camera, on film, is incredibly important, and you look stunning. So congratulations on that.
Thanks. Well, it gave me enough time. You know, when they turned me into Jay Garrick, they sprang that on me at the last moment. So I'm a little heavier in those first Jay Garrick scenes than I am at the beginning of season 3. Once I had the summer to Henry Allen, it didn't matter. You know, I could eat all the ice cream I wanted. Well, I had enough time, but I lost between 15 and 20 pounds. And worked out, because I wanted the designers to be able to build from the skin out when they were building musculature, so that they give them a shape. I didn't want them to have to start with straight up and down. So I was really pleased with the shape that I got in. And once I was on set in the bunker, and a friend of mine pointed this out, it was like, they're like, oh my God, do you see the gesture you just made? You have not made that on Flash yet. That is right out of your Barry Allen. So I don't know if just psychologically I transported back, but even the way I said, hello, John, where's your ring? You know, it was a different sound. It was from 1990 pulled forward. So I don't know. I guess I had done enough work back then that even when I didn't realize it. Once I put on that suit, and then once everybody lost their minds, I mean, the reaction was so enthusiastic from the casts, from Mark Guggenheim on Twitter, from certainly the audience and my friends, that I got excited, you know. See, I don't have a concept that I really can't grasp what these guys have said in interviews, some of my colleagues, that they grew up with me playing the Flash. And so to see that again in front of them, in a way, brings back their childhood. I mean, I walked on the set and Grant said, "This is the coolest thing we've ever done," you know. And it always surprises me. I mean, when words like icon, I think words like icon and legend get thrown around a little bit too freely, you know. But, you know, when they say it, they seem to mean it. And that always takes me back, you know, because I just, you know, it's a role that I played for one season 27 years ago. And the fact that people still have such a great affection for it is makes me feel like it wasn't all for nothing.
No, look, not at all. I mean, I was a little boy when the original Flash show was on and watched that season. And I was thinking about this while I was watching the crossover. There's so much romance with bringing back what I think is a legacy that you built with that one episode. There's so much weight that gets carried with pop culture and comic books and the characters that we love, and people find an emotional link with the characters that they love, and I as a fan, I think you built something, and even though it only lasted for a season, you built a legacy there that has stood the test of time. And
it's amazing. Well, I was the only live action Flash for 24 years, so that helped. I mean, if somebody wanted a live action Flash, I was pretty much the only game in town, so I had a captive audience, you know. And then when they released the DVD in 2006, it got a new life, and of course, with the advent of the new show, then they reprinted a whole bunch of my season. It's on Netflix. It's on the DC universe. It's available, and so many people are now coming up at conventions and asking me for the photos from the original show, which had sort of stopped. They all wanted me and Grant either as Henry and Barry, or Jay Garrick and Barry, and but now they're like, "No, this is cool. We want this." So it's mind blowing the way things come around. I am mindful once again of my good fortune, because, you know, it wasn't written that 27 years later comics would go mainstream and people would have this much invested in my version of it. So I am the recipient of great good fortune, you know, and I try to be mindful of it every day.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an important part of our history, and you know, you should never forget history. That's for sure. And it's funny. My daughter's 10 years old, and she obviously knows all the current stuff. But she's 10. She knows of you. She knows of Dad's original Flash, you know. And earlier on in the year, we sat down and we watched the first 3 episodes of your season. So I think it's incredibly important that the CW has tied all this together now. So I just want to say that it's fantastic that it's all been brought together. And I guess with that, talking about, obviously, the character means so much to you. And then if we look at the 100th episode and how that played out, and your involvement in that, what did that mean to you to get involved in that milestone?
Well, it's always very moving that they want me to contribute in a meaningful way, you know. And that's what it's been these last over 4 seasons. I jokingly said to people, yeah, it took me 27 years to get 100th episode. It only took Grant a little over 4 years, so I guess we know who really is the fastest man alive.
And I want to talk about the particular scene that you filmed when we see Grant and his daughter stopping in front of his house, and he's kind of reflecting on where he used to live as a child.
Oh, yeah.
And he can see he could see his father and his mother on the porch there at the front of their house. And as fast paced as the show is and the storyline is, I felt like that entire scene had just slowed everything down completely, and it gets back to the roots of why the current Barry is doing everything he's doing. And it just, to me, it got back to love and family. Yeah, can you talk us through what it was like filming that scene and creating that?
First of all, I adore Michelle Harrison. She's just terrific. She died so many times, and every time it was completely organic. You know, I don't know how she continually worked it up. It was very interesting, and I think it was Tom's idea to revisit the night of her murder and see what was going on right before it happened. And you know, I will always treasure the first season particularly, but the first two seasons and those Henry Barry moments, Grant and I clicked in a very personal way, and those scenes are some of the favorite, most truthful, honest, simple moments I think I've ever, you know, had the good fortune to play. So yeah, it was great that briefly I would come back as Henry Allen and then be in The Stinger as 1990s Flash. You know, they keep things interesting for us that way. They let us, you know, play different characters and touch in on different. But again, you know, we were there and we served as a reference for this beautiful scene that they had. But there again, people were writing on Twitter, that was the saddest scene of the show. I started crying at that scene. You know, it broke my heart. And again, the degree of investment in the characters is so intense that I really ride on that. If I had come out in a version of the 90s suit and everyone had gone, okay, let's just shoot this scene and get it out, I would have been crushed. You know, I wouldn't have wanted to do it, you know. I feared that they were going to ask me to do it ever since I came on the show, but I didn't think it would really happen. As Andrew Kreisberg once said, how meta do you get before the whole thing falls apart? You know, but they found a way. You know, the idea of the Red Lightning trying to break through and following them around and finally phases in and then out, just trying to get that message to them about the book. So I felt I had a vital role to play. Some audience members have complained that it was on the short side, but you know what? Playing that tag and having it played across all platforms, and then coming in and what an entrance, you know, a very dramatic way, and delivering the information that was needed. I was perfectly happy with that.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, nobody wants to be folded with the flick of a hand. Nobody wants that, but hey, that's the story, right?
No, look,
that's
I mean,
how the monitor
really,
is.
Yeah, I think, and you should be ecstatic and really happy with how they've brought it all back and tied it all together. I think it's incredibly smart on how the show has pulled it all together. That scene that you were just talking about, where you come back and you warn them about the book, and we've got all the commotion going on around you. I couldn't help thinking that there was some similarities there between that scene and the nightmare scene with Batman versus Superman, and Barry coming back to Ben Affleck as Batman, warning him.
It's Iris. Talk to Iris. I even went up to the director and said that. He said, totally. He said he saw that. He said that to Mark, and Mark said, well, nobody saw that movie anyway. You know, I don't know. He said something. But yeah, it did work very well. But when I read it, I thought immediately, you know, I wanted to do, except it's hard to clown around, particularly when you're a recurring guest star, to get some fun outtakes. But I wanted to do one where I broke through and said that line about I thought it would be hilarious, but
and another iconic scene that we saw, we're talking about the crossover now, talking about Elseworlds, we have you as Barry Allen standing next to Supergirl, and then we have Stephen Amell in the Flash suit standing next to you as well. So we have two Flash standing together, which within itself is a bit of history. Can Can you talk us through that particular scene with the crossover? And I want to ask you something in particular around Stephen Amell in a Flash suit as well. But what was it like for you to have, I guess, two Flash together on the street there, prepared to fight? But it's not Grant in the suit, so...
Right, I know. Grant even said that he was bummed when he read it, that he didn't get to... He wanted to be Flash and play Flash opposite my Flash, and who knows, they'll probably find a way for that to happen at some point. I think it would be a very moving episode, and now we've learned that Crisis of Infinite Earths is coming up next fall, which took the top of my head off. I didn't realize they were doing that. So there's all kinds of possibilities going forward. Yeah, the funny thing when we were shooting in the alley, because we kept it quiet, the bunker scenes, we didn't release what I was doing. We wanted it to be a surprise. But then the last day we were shooting in that alley, and even though they screened off both ends, people were coming out on their balconies and terraces with their cell phones. So Suzanne Gomez at CW Publicity called Stephen and said, shoot a picture. We got to get out in front of this. And the funny thing for me was, from the reaction on Twitter, of course, you get spontaneous reaction from people now, unfiltered, without them giving it a second thought. And they were so amazed, oh my God, that's the original suit. Wesley Shipp is in the original suit. That it was like 10 or 12 hours later that people were saying, I didn't even realize that Stephen and Grant had switched suits. But everybody's eye went to that. And then they're like, what's wrong with this picture? Wait a minute. And then it's like they switched suits. There again, what a talented cast. And talk about Stephen. I think Stephen was a big winner, if you want to refer to it that way. They're all winners in the crossover. But if I had to look at one performer that got to stretch by virtue of switching personas with a much lighter character when his character is so dark. And I wrote him and I said, Stephen, for me, you grounded that crossover. You played light, you played dark. They talked about him smiling. Oh my God, are you smiling? He played some comedy, some romantic moments, very sensitive moments, and fierce moments. And he did it by turns. And I didn't think he had a false moment. I was watching it, the arc of those 3 episodes. I went, wow, we really got a chance to see the extent of his artistry.
Yeah, absolutely. He's such a strong, such a strong presence on screen, and like you said, stretching out like that beyond the boundaries of the Green Arrow was something very different to be seen. Did he come to you at all and talk to you about, I guess, being in that suit or prior to those scenes? Was there any conversations that you guys had around what he needed to do, or did he come to you for any advice, or was it very much get in the suit and we'll make it work?
No. I would think as an actor, if I were Stephen playing the Green Arrow, getting in the Flash suit, clearly the Flash suit he got in was Grant's. So if he talked to anyone about that, he probably talked to Grant. I would imagine that they both, well, I know they did. He helped. There's a footage, B-roll, of Stephen coaching him with the arrow and different things. I'm sure it went both ways, but that was the intersection, and I got to be in the middle of it. So that was fun.
Yeah, it was amazing, and then seeing Grant in the Arrow suit as well.
He was great. I was thought Robin Hood.
Yeah,
I was like, man, he's got to play that. And also he got to really utilize his moves, because his movement, vis-a-vis his dance and movement training, which was so superior to my capabilities ever were, and to see him spin, twirl, and shoot and stuff, and really get to capitalize on that was a lot of fun.
With the crossover, we had the introduction of a new character. We had Batwoman that come and added so much to the story. What's your take on I guess on Ruby Rose and her building the Batwoman character? Was there much involvement with you, I guess, behind the camera, and kind of what did that look like?
No,
what's your opinion
I don't believe
on that?
I don't believe we met. I don't think we met, but
Right.
I was watching, as everyone was, and this face and this presence leap off the screen. That at the end of that episode, which was really a backdoor pilot, as we know, for Batwoman, I got the gif of her twirling around and kicking in the suit and the red hair, and I just put "A Star Is Born," and there's like probably 10,000 likes and 800 retweets on that. You know, that really resonated. Also on her page, she saw that and retweeted, but I really felt like it because I was like, okay, this is a very special presence. You know, I really felt that about LaMonica also, because his presence, he could do so much by doing so little. I always feel that sometimes I work too hard. I have to work to simplify, because that's a real gift, and some people have it, the gift of presence. And they get to show up something, the way the light and the camera reacts and their innate authority, and you get it right away before they even open their mouths. And I feel that way about both of them.
Yeah. Look, I agree. Ruby Rose created that presence on screen and really drew you in. Absolutely. Crisis on Infinite Earths. We see that coming. I guess obviously, I think you'll be involved. I think your version of Barry will be involved in that. Did you guys know that was coming? Did you know that this was going to lead to that coming fall next year? At what point in the timeline, so to speak, did you know that was going to be part of the conclusion?
Well, leading up, the way that Greg and those guys and Todd and Sterling, the way they were telling those stories, we were all figuring that that's where they were headed. But I didn't have confirmation of that until that flashed up on the screen. And I was watching with some friends, and we just went, oh my God, you know, with everybody else.
Well.
It was like, these guys, I told Greg once, I said, you always surprise me, and you always keep me interested with the choices that you're making across this universe. I mean, wow, it's astounding. They always one up themselves. You know they always top themselves.
Absolutely.
You know, there's always more, because they're huge comic book fans, and Greg was a huge Flash fan. A fact I did not know when he was my head writer on Dawson's Creek. You know, I never knew that until the Flash thing started. But yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing thing to see unfold.
Absolutely. There's a level of escalation that keeps happening with this universe. And at the core of it, they're fans like everybody else. And that's where the passion comes from, I think, you know?
The passion, yes.
Absolutely.
You're right. Yes.
So now that we've seen Elseworlds, we've got the 3 episodes. The story progressed, I think, quite nicely across all 3. If we talk about post now, you looking back on that and looking at how that story evolved, the intimacy, I think, between the legacy you created with the Flash, bringing that into the current story, I guess, how would you sum up Elseworlds now? How would you describe it now that you've seen it and all the work that you've put into it?
It's amazing how it's rolled out, my participation in this series. That they took, clearly at the very beginning, as Henry Allen Grant knew I had been the Flash, I had an idea of some of his hopes and dreams and insecurities. So we immediately hooked in. I was not playing a superhero, and I think that was important at the beginning for the development of our creative relationship. We got to play father-son in an origin story that was completely different. And we hooked in on a very in a very personal way. Then we got the fun of Jay Garrick, and then it progressed to the point where we were really close as people and as actors by the time I show up in this suit. So there's like no separation. That's what I love. It's evolved. Playing Barry Allen helped me play Henry Allen better. Having that intimacy and warmth with Grant helped me reset a colder character with Jay Garrick, a slightly more, I'm not sure about you, you know. And then having done all of that brought me right back to where it all started for me. So it's not only the Elseworlds, it's the progression, the way they included me, and the sequence of roles that they brought. You know, I wouldn't have wanted to play Jay Garrick out of the hat. I certainly would not have gotten back in the original suit. I can't believe even now that I did it, but I did it because I felt I grounded myself in my contribution as Henry Allen. Very quiet, very realistic, very truthful work. And then through Jay Garrick, and then after that I was, oh, why not? You know, particularly because they found, I felt, a really organic way to include me where I could show up and make a real contribution.
Yeah. If you had the opportunity to direct an episode or help co-produce an episode, if that ever opportunity came up, would you take something like that with the Flash?
You know, it's not something I ever did. I've had multiple opportunities to do it. Certainly, I could have talked to them with the original run of The Flash. Certainly, Dawson's Creek. I remember an interview with the International Press after the second season, and somebody asked if any cast members would be directing, and everybody in the room looked at me. I'm like, my work is so, I work from the inside out. I don't really care if the spoon is this way or this way. You know, I don't think in terms of pictures. I think in terms of the emotional truth that I'm being asked to play, you know, and making that as truthful as I can make it. So it hasn't evolved into that. I think it's a really hard thing to do. And actors from Laurence Olivier on down who have tried it have said it's difficult to do both because they call for completely different skill sets. One is on the outside looking in, and one is pulling up your truth from the inside out. So for me, it's two completely different. Now, I have worked on a couple of independent films they called it director, but I really called it working with young casts to try to bring out truthful moments and sort of show them that acting is nothing that they anticipated. That it was just simply acting is reacting, acting is responding, listening and responding. It's exactly what we're doing right now. And the effort comes in peeling away all the stuff that young talent doesn't need so that their true selves can come to the part. And when that light goes on, you know, and they realize what it feels like, and it's not put on from the outside, that it's, you see the lights go on and they're like, wow. You know, of course you get there through Meisner, through Strasberg exercises, through the different techniques that I've studied over the years. But I don't know if I answered your question, but that's what leapt to mind when you said the word directing.
No, I think you did. Not 100% directly, but you did. You gave me a good answer. Thank you. So before you were talking about Jay, and obviously you've played Barry. And I don't know whether you can allude to anything here, but are we going to see Jay again? Are we going to see you playing that character again?
Well, I hope so. I know in the comics Jay's there. Isn't Jay holding the suit? I mean, there have been so many ideas floated.
Yeah.
About that. There's so many possibilities for goosebump moments between what they call OG Flash, Jay Garrick, and current Flash, Grant's Flash. I mean, there's the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely.
And I've no doubt they'll come up with something really special. And I would love, it could be a real sense of completion for me, if they tell it in a certain way. But, I'm sure that whatever they come up with is going to be, I mean, if the past is, what did they say? The past is prologue. What was that? Then certainly what we've seen up to this point foreshadows that it's going to be, they're going to blow our minds again.
Absolutely. Absolutely they will. I can't wait. A little bit left of field. As far as other things that you've done, you voiced Professor Zoom on Batman Brave and the Bold. And as far as voice acting is concerned and bringing those characters to life, will we see you do anything like that again? Anywhere across, I guess, the DC universe? Do you want to do anything like that again?
I would love to. That was a blast. Also, I had to learn what that process was. I had done it once before in 1990 at Warner Brothers for a pilot for voicing a character. But it was such a funny experience because we got together and stood in a semicircle and we weren't looking at anything. My instinct as an actor is to turn to the person I'm talking to. So a moment would come and they'd cut and they'd say, John, you have to stay on the mic. Oh, right. And so my performance was kind of flat until they went away and they animated it. Then they brought us back in to replace technically defective dialogue. Well, now I'm seeing where it goes. And I have a visual cue. Yeah. And the couple of lines I replaced sprang to life. So after everybody got through fixing their lines, they were like, John, can you come into the control room? And so they said, it's a whole different character now. Would you mind redoing your entire part? I said, I would love to. I would love to. And we redid the entire thing. And that's how that happened.
Yeah, it's so much different, right? When you can visualize it and see what's going on with your character and you bring it to life that way.
Yeah. Some of these voice actors who do that all the time, I mean, they're amazing. I mean, the characters are leaping out of them before they have a visual reference or, and they're staying right on mic. So it's a very interesting thing to watch.
Yeah. I've got one final question for you. If we going back to Elseworlds now and the crossover, is there one particular moment or one particular scene for you that I guess holds more meaning above anything else? And it can, obviously it can be a scene to do with the Flash and or it could be anything across that story. Do you have a moment across those 3 episodes where it resonated with you more than anything else?
I think one thing they did is it was like a roller coaster, wasn't it? It was like a runaway train going down a mountain. So the moment when suddenly it was just Stephen and Grant and they were just standing still and looking and talking to each other, they earned that moment. And that moment played so well as a result. It's risky. Talk about directing. I would almost never have my actors stand still and talk to each other. Yeah. Because I think that can be, having come through soap operas, it begins to feel a bit static, but they earned their moments. I thought the scene between Emily and Stephen where they came together was heartbreak. I thought that yummy is the word, it doesn't get any better than that. They were totally truthful. Of course, the Batwoman blew my mind. It wouldn't be anything that I did, except that crawling through that whole thing. And I did stop at one point and go, did I just participate in the destruction of my own world?
I think so. Very iconic, very iconic. But I think it's funny. I think there's a special type of chemistry on scene when we've got Grant Gustin and we've got Stephen together, and it's just those two, and they look at each other in the eye. Even in the bar scene right at the end, and they're talking. It's just it's two best mates together, and they may not see each other often, but when they do get together, there's just that chemistry there, which I think is so special.
It's a unique. It's like whether you get two world-class musicians or two world-class wrestlers or two world-class athletes, and they have a bond from playing these people with a particular set of extraordinary abilities, and so there's an ease, but I felt I had that with Grant, and the common denominator is Grant. So, I swear, when I look at his work, I go, is the boy incapable of a dishonest moment? Because I haven't seen it yet, Everything, people ask me at conventions, what's he like? And I say, what you see is what you get. He brings his truth to everything I've seen him do. It's hard to pick one moment but those were moments that leap out to me. Of course, when we first had that picture together, and I was looking at it with a friend, and there was Grant as Arrow, there was me in the OG suit, there was Steven, and then there was Melissa, and all us guys, we look great, we look fine, and then there was Melissa. I mean, talk about someone who has a presence. She is a very unique and special talent, and the scene between her and her sister in part 3.
Yes.
Everything she does is so. I mean, she can stand there and not pose and not do anything, and she just is it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I briefly remember interviewing her at San Diego Comic-Con at the roundtables, and when she walked into that room, it's the room kind of just pauses.
Yeah, I know. When I met her for the first time at San Diego Comic-Con, I was like, hadn't seen her work yet, and I was just like, you are extraordinary. I didn't say that. That would have been weird, but that was my inner dialogue,
What you're thinking inside. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, John, I want to say one thing. I want to say that I think the 100th episode of Flash was brilliant. I think Elseworlds was amazing, and we're all looking to Crisis on Infinite Earths now. I think you've added a very special ingredient to all this, and being a Flash fan and a Batman fan, but more so the Flash in the context of this conversation, it's important that we bring the legacy that you created and the icon that you created into the current world, and the bond that creates. So as a fan, I just want to thank you for creating that and for creating that special element with the crossover. I think you've done an amazing job.
Thank you.
And seeing you in that iconic suit again, I think put a smile on everyone's face. And it was like, whoa, what's going on here? So that's I just want to thank you for that, and thanks for making the time to talk to me and talk to our fans at DC Comics News. I
also want to just mention that we're scheduling personal appearances in the new year, and I've scheduled 8 so far. Pensacon, and what are they? There's I'll be in Albuquerque, I'll be in California, I'll be at Pensacon, I'll be in Kansas City, I'll be in Houston, Jackson, New Jersey, A Great Adventure, and I can't read that last one. So, but I'm just, if people would watch my, I make announcements on my Twitter, or because people are always saying, where are you going to be? Or I wish I knew you were going to be there. I would have gone. So, but I do have a bunch of personal appearances coming up where I actually get to learn more about the audience than they get to learn about me, because I watch and I listen. It's fun.
Yeah, and observe. So we're we'll advertise that. We'll advertise where you're going to be, so our fans know how they can connect with you. But thank you so much for talking with me, and thank you for making the time. It's
thank you.
It's an honor for me to talk to you again, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and way to represent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Flash t-shirt, I got the Flash hat. I've gone into fan mode. So yeah, it's been awesome talking to you. Thank you so much, John.
Thanks.
Really
Until next time.
Absolutely.
Jay?
No. My God, Dad? My name is Barry Allen.